Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is John Rubino, author of several books on the economy, including The Money Bubble, his website, dollarcollapse.com. Welcome back to the show, John.
Hey, Jim. How are you today?
I'm doing terrific. John, Brexit. I have never seen a more confusing and frustrating mess in my life when it comes to a country's political future. What are you seeing here with something like 12 or 13 proposals rejected by Parliament?
Yeah, well, Brexit is, it's potentially a big deal because it affects the economies of both the UK, which is a pretty good-sized economy, and the European Union, which is a gigantic conglomeration of some big and some small economies. I guess the point of it being so much harder than everybody thought it was going to be is that it's not in the European Union's interest to make it easy, right? They want it to look so difficult and, catastrophically hard for the UK as a way of heading off Italy or Greece or some other country who's having trouble within the European Union, wanting to do the same thing. If they made it really easy for Britain, if it was super smooth and it happened in the first week that it was possible and Britain was now a thriving independent economy, then Italy would probably be lining up for the same deal, and that's not good for the European Union because, remember, the United States fought a civil war in order to keep the Union from breaking up. And the EU is nowhere near integrated enough to justify something like that, but they still don't want to break up. They want to expand and add countries rather than having countries just take off when everything get a little rough. So it's no surprise that this is tough for Britain. And there's no done deal yet. It's how many years have they been in this process? I think it's 2 now, right? And it really doesn't look like there's any kind of a deal that is an actual feasible Brexit path. So there's a thing called hard Brexit, where they just one day aren't part of the European Union anymore, and then everybody has to work out their own issues with the regulations that, for instance, a business used to operate under and now no longer operates under because they're under UK rules rather than EU rules, and contracts that are done according to one set of rules and now have to be translated over into another set of rules. And who's allowed to do what where. There's a lot of stuff that has to be worked out. And in a hard Brexit, none of it's worked out. They just one day have a different set of rules applying to everybody. That sounds really messy, and it's not a small thing because a lot of companies can't continue to do business under such uncertain circumstances, and they're liable just to leave the UK. And so that's very bad for the UK, obviously, to have countries leaving, or companies leaving, and then have people who no longer have the ability to live in one place and have to move back to their old place. And, so you've got a lot of population movements that you wouldn't have had otherwise and that don't help you when they're happening. So it's going to be messy, but it's just one more thing. The world is very, very complicated right now and very over-leveraged. So say they settled Brexit today and it stopped being an issue, then Italy probably would move to the forefront in the EU as a failed state with a soon-to-be-dead banking sector, unless it's completely bailed out by the European Central Bank, which is to say Germany. So it goes on and on. When you borrow too much money, stuff happens. And once one thing is resolved, something else has lined up right behind it to cause trouble. That's just the world we live in now. So I think Brexit is interesting and hopefully not too difficult for the people in the UK, but it's by no means our only problem. We have so many others that solving one just means we get to focus on the next one, and so on, until a lot of big things happen to change the global financial system.
Well, one thing about the EU staying together, it's in Germany's best interest, isn't it? Because if Germany was on its own, the Deutsche Mark would be so high it wouldn't have any exports.
That's actually an interesting thought, because in this world, the euro is a relatively strong currency, but it's actually very, very weak compared to, like you said, what the Deutsche Mark would be. And that's allowing Germany to run a big trade surplus and just put up beautiful numbers. You know, Germany is, just based on the numbers, by far the best run economy in the world. But a lot of that is because they've got an artificially weak currency in the euro, and they've got the other countries in the European Union who buy German stuff with borrowed money. So you got this process where the German banks lend money to Italy and Spain and Greece. Those guys turn around and buy German exports, giving Germany this really nice trade balance, but at the cost of huge build up in debt in those other countries, which they can't pay. So in the next crisis, that debt's going to go back to Germany and end up on Germany's balance sheet when it has to bail out all these other countries. So it's possible that the cheap currency that they're working with now is going to come back to bite them. And maybe they would have been happier if a little less robust if they had a strong currency like the Deutsche Mark, because then they at least probably wouldn't be doing vendor financing to all these other countries, and wouldn't have this huge debt burden that isn't on their books now, but will be on their books one of these days soon.
Well, also, the last time recession hit in 2008, Germany's solution was to give a $10,000 grant to everybody who bought a new car. And guess what country snapped out of the 2008 recession first?
Well, see, they had the balance sheet to be able to do something like that. And basically all that is in effect, it's a tax cut. Same thing, where you just find a way via one law or another law to put money in people's hands, which they then spend. That's fine, or put it this way, that's relatively harmless when you've got a pristine balance sheet. In other words, when you haven't already borrowed a ton of money. But most of the world has already borrowed a ton of money. So for any of the rest of us to try something like that would just make our problems worse. You know, the U.S. did something like that. Did you ever hear about cash for clunkers when we did that?
Oh, yes.
That was something similar, right? We'll buy your old car for a reasonable price, and then since you don't have your car anymore, you're going to have to go buy a new car. So it was similar to what Germany did. You know, we'll give you money for buying a new car. And, that accomplished nothing because they scrapped a lot of completely functional cars and forced the car industry to build a lot of new cars, which, if you worry about climate change, was a really bad thing because it's really energy intensive to build cars. And it also added more debt to a federal balance sheet that really didn't need more debt. So, the point being in all this is that once you reach a certain point of leverage, there's nothing you can do that doesn't make anything worse or doesn't make everything worse because, you try to pay it off, and then you go broke, or you take on more debt, and then you go broke in a bigger way later on, and there's no third choice that is pain-free. So that's where we are now as a world.
We'll have more with John Rubino right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the pink CYDVF, and on Frankfurt C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Rubino. John, NAFTA, too, seems like it's not a done deal. You have the Democrats saying until Mexico modifies its labor laws, they're not going to sign it off. And in Canada, the foreign minister is pointing out Canada is still paying, or the U.S. is paying huge tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, which is very harmful to our industry because we supplied 70% of the U.S.'s aluminum. Is NAFTA, too, in danger?
Well, these kinds of deals aren't easy to work out because you've got a lot of conflicting interests, right? In the U.S., aluminum industry, for instance, since you mentioned them, would love those tariffs to stay on. And the aluminum workers, who are also voters, would love that to be the case. So to cut a free trade deal where tariffs just go away is good for some and bad for others. And if you're the politician making that deal, you got to be very cognizant of the people that you're angering, because the people that you help may or may not vote for you, but the people you anger will definitely vote against you. So that's like a super strength voter there, because they're guaranteed to actually vote, and their voice is much louder because of that than somebody who's just complacent and happy, who may or may not vote. And look at any industry, and you've got stuff like that. I totally get the U.S. labor movement and the Democrats who represent them being concerned about cutting a free trade deal with a lower wage country like Mexico, unless they offer some kind of a worker protection plan that keeps their workers from being ground down to ever lower wages by rapacious Mexican companies. We have some protections in place here that keep big U.S. companies from exploiting workers. And we have some environmental rules that cost a lot, that U.S. companies have to put up with, that maybe Mexican countries or companies don't have to put up with. And so you've got environmentalists and labor people in the U.S. Not liking free trade at all with Mexico and wanting Mexico to adopt a lot of our regulatory structures. And Mexico's worried about that because, they're not rich enough to support environmental rules that, for instance, the U.S. can handle, or labor laws that maybe guarantee higher wages than Mexican companies can pay. It's messy. It's not easy to do. And I don't know what happens if we don't sign anything. I'm not sure what the outcome is then, what we fall back on, or whether we just have this hodgepodge of tariffs that change from year to year depending on the political winds, which would be bad too. So, I think in general, for market-based economies, clear rules that everybody has to adhere to and that everybody understands is by far the best system, because it minimizes the amount of effort and time and capital that you have to put into gaming the system. If the rules are clear, unambiguous, and common sense, then generally people obey them, or at least don't go way, way, way out of their way to violate them. So hopefully that's what we end up with, but who knows? I'm not a trade expert and have no chance of ever becoming one. But I hope we come up with something so we can all get along and, go visit each other and everything. the waits at the Canadian border aren't too long, because I like to come up and see you guys once in a while, and if it's 100-car long line and moving really slowly because the immigration and customs rules are so strict, then it's not nearly as much fun as it would be otherwise. So hopefully we get this together pretty soon.
Well, just remember, there's really good, terrifically wonderful cold beer waiting for you.
All right.
We'll have more with John Rubino right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Rubino. John, are the U.S.-China trade talks ever going to work out?
That's another one that just keeps dragging on, isn't it? That one's actually more understandable than Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. Because China is cheating in really obvious ways. I remember reading a story a while ago about how if you go to, for instance, a scientific conference in China, that there's a good chance they'll give you a thumb drive with the name of the conference on it as a keepsake. And if you bring that thumb drive home, you put it in your computer, it will load malware onto your computer and start scouring your computer for any kind of trade secret or scientific data that the Chinese can use. And that all flows directly back to the Chinese government. And they do a lot of things like that. Like if you want to open a branch in China, if you're an American company, they insist that you partner with a Chinese company and give the Chinese company 51% ownership. And if you want to open a factory there to make airplanes, let's say, or wind turbines or whatever, you have to give your Chinese partner your intellectual property. In other words, you got to tell them the secrets that make your wind turbines, if you're General Electric, let's say, the best in the world. And that has allowed them to, field a much stronger military than they would have otherwise because they've been stealing our military secrets, and to grow a lot faster and become a industrial powerhouse, largely without doing the basic work. They just stole the secrets and then built factories around those secrets. So it's completely understandable that Trump wants to renegotiate the terms of trade with China and get them to stop stealing all our intellectual property. And it's understandable that China doesn't want to stop because it's such a sweet deal for them. That's a gravy train. When you can break into General Dynamics' computer system and steal the plans for the world's most advanced military drone, and then build drones based on those plans without having to do any of the background research, that's something you wouldn't want to give up if you had it. And they have it. They have the ability to do that. So, I gotta say, I worry about the trade conflict turning into a cyber war, though, where we start stealing their stuff and maybe punishing them for stealing our stuff by shutting down their electric grid or messing with their banking system or doing any number of other things that you can do if you can hack into other computer systems. And I assume we're the best at that in the world. And that we could seriously mess with them if we wanted to. And the idea that would happen, trade would turn into a cyber war, takes us very close to a shooting war, because if you shut down somebody's power grid and people die or billions of dollars are lost because of it or whatever, that is an act of war. And the next step in the escalation is to take out somebody's battleship or something like that. And, we're building weapons that should never be used. They're just too terrible and too unpredictable. We really don't know what will happen once we turn autonomous nuclear-powered submarines loose in the ocean, and Terminator scale robots on the battlefield. There's stuff that can happen in the not too distant future that we absolutely can't predict. Oh, and hypersonic missiles, things that can get from one continent to another in just a few minutes and can totally evade any kind of missile defense system. Yeah, there's stuff like that is being deployed and really should never be used. So we have to be so careful in this tiny space, in this little planet, how we handle things like trade disputes and political disputes of other kinds.
Perhaps all major world leaders should get a tour of duty up on the space station and just see how delicate and fragile this little blue marble is.
Yeah. Or they should get a scare where somebody says, hey, there's hypersonic missiles coming. They're going to be here in 5 minutes. And then feel what that is like, to know that you're going to be vaporized and there's nothing you can do about it. I think anybody who's got their finger on any buttons needs to have that feeling, and know that the rest of us could feel like that in a heartbeat, and we don't want to.
John, thank you so much for soldiering through your cold and talking to us.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
My guest has been John Rubino, author of several books on the economy, including The Money Bubble, his website, dollarcollapse.com. If you have any questions for John or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.